Hello, friends. I'm Kush Khandelwal, and this is Ageless Athlete. A few years ago, I started asking questions that would not leave me alone. Why do some people keep pushing mentally, physically, spiritually long after others burn out or break down? What does it really mean to age well when you still crave movement, meaning, and mastery? This show is my search for answers. Each week, I talk to elite athletes, everyday adventurers, and pioneering researchers who are stretching the limits of what's possible across age, injury, illness, and self doubt. You will hear hard won lessons, untold stories, and science backed strategies for building a body and mindset that lasts. For those of us joining for the first time, welcome to the show. For the rest, thank you for joining us again. Time is our most valuable asset, and I deeply appreciate you giving me your time today.
So a lot of people ask me, have you been sailing all your life? And then when I tell them that I didn't start until I was 60, they're shocked because people don't think of your 60s as a starting point for anything. And that's tragic, really, because especially like me, I've invested a lot of time and energy in my health and well-being. And so what's the point of being healthy and retired and 60 if I'm not going to go out and do something fantastic?
Imagine waking up in a place that never quite holds still. The floor beneath you shifts, the horizon tilts. Wind decides the plan before you do. Deborah Hammett lives here now on a sailboat, anchored in a harbor, her home gently moving even at rest. Breakfast is simple, two hard boiled eggs. Outside, the wind is already making choices. This is not a vacation. This is a life she chose at 60, when most people are told to simplify, slow down, and stay close to what's familiar. Out here, mistakes don't stay abstract. An overheating engine 30 miles offshore isn't inconvenient, it's consequential. There is no shoulder to pull over onto, no quick help. Just what you know, what you have practiced, and what you can figure out while the boat keeps moving. This conversation isn't really about sailing. It's about what happens when identity loosens, when long held roles fall away, and you choose to become a beginner again. We talk about fear, solitude, competence earned slowly, about aging not as decline but as adaptation, about choosing a harder, more meaningful path when comfort is readily available. And because this episode is releasing on New Year's Eve, I want to pause for a moment. I am deeply grateful to Deborah and to every guest this year for trusting me with their stories. These conversations exist because people were willing to be honest, reflective, and human on the mic. And to you, the listeners, thank you for your attention, for your messages, for your curiosity, for your nudges, for staying with the show as it's grown into what it's becoming. If you have ever supported the podcast by listening, sharing an episode, or going to buy me a coffee and buying me a coffee, yes, you can do that by going to buymeacoffee.com and going to Ageless Athlete. There will be links on the show notes. I'm an independent creator, and this genuinely keeps this show and this work alive and independent. Your support matters more than you probably realize. This episode is an invitation not to sail, but to ask a better question as we step into a new year. What would you do if the next chapter didn't need to look like the last one? Deborah, and I always start off with this question, which is, where are you right now, and what did you have for breakfast this morning?
Okay. I am in Newport, Rhode Island, in Newport Harbor, and I had two hard-boiled eggs for breakfast this morning.
Got it. Newport, Rhode Island. I have spent a little bit of time in the Northeast. I don't know enough about Rhode Island, but what I can see in your camera in the backdrop, I see the water and I see
this horizon with some trees. And I
Mhm.
guess what's unique about this image is normally people's backgrounds are still, and
Yeah,
yours is
mine is
not
moving
still.
slower. That
So
is
yeah,
because, yeah,
yeah.
I have about 15 to 20 knots of wind out of the south, and I am actually very well protected. The land south of me, so I'm getting a good amount of protection. But that is why I'm not sailing today, because I think it would be a little too much wind for what I wanted to do today. So, and it wouldn't be in the exact direction that I would want. So I am staying put.
Exactly. And Deborah, you are not in a brick and mortar dwelling.
No, not by any means. No.
So
Mhm.
can you tell us about your residence?
I live on my boat. She is a 36-foot sailboat, and she's made in France. And it's a 2011 boat, and all of the lines for sailing this boat run back to the cockpit. So I don't have to leave the cockpit to go run around and manipulate the sails or anything like that. Unless there's an emergency and something gets stuck or broken, I can do everything from the cockpit. It has 2 cabins and a galley, which is my little kitchen, and it has a bathroom and shower, and I even have a little garage where I keep my folding bike and my tools, because things always break on a boat. So I'm constantly working on things with my tools. I have my sewing machine on board. This morning I did a little sewing project.
In so many ways, your description sounds like just any home that most of us live in, but in all other ways, it's wildly different. And it's
Mhm.
funny, I am currently also nomadic. I
Oh,
am living in a van,
uh-huh.
and usually when I interview people and they don't know that and they learn that during the show, yeah, that just elicits some questions. I feel like the tables have turned because I think
Uh-huh.
you have just
Yeah.
one up me on.
I don't have a car, so I have a little dinghy, a small motorboat that gets me to shore, and that's how I do my grocery shopping, and that's how I go to shore to go for a run. Like this morning, I did that.
Deborah, for those of us who may not know you, so how do you describe yourself these days? We learned a little bit about you, but who is Deborah?
Well, I'm a retired elementary school teacher and principal, and I am from Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. And I started sailing when I was 60 years old, and now I am a live aboard sailor, and I spend my winters in the Bahamas. I'm also an author because I decided to write a book about it, the adventure of learning to sail at 60 and sailing solo to the Bahamas and back, where I made a lot of crazy mistakes, like the Lucille Ball of the Seas, and I learned some good lessons, and now I have a little bit more confidence. So this will be my 3rd trip this winter, and I still make some mistakes. Yesterday I made a mistake, but I keep learning.
Amazing, Deborah. You had a career a lot of us would identify with, and you left that career to do something very different. Actually, right before we started recording, you spoke about how you were continuing to teach, I think.
So I was teaching online while I was sailing. So when I first started sailing this boat down to the Bahamas, I was teaching about 20 hours a week. And so I would have to, drop the anchor and teach a lesson and then continue on my way. And it got to the point where it was not really always safe for me to do that, which meant that there were times that I had to cancel because of the weather. And my students understood that. I had very loyal students, but I didn't really like disappointing them. And I ended up saying, okay, I'm gonna stop doing this. And then when I was doing nothing, I felt like I was being kind of selfish, just drifting, just sailing the world in my sailboat and not really contributing anything to anybody and not really having much of a sense of purpose. I thought, how can I make a contribution with my teaching skills in a way where I won't have to have a schedule? I thought, well, maybe people my age still read books. So maybe I can write a book, because there are a lot of YouTube channels where people are living aboard their sailboats and they are, spearfishing and, but they're really gorgeous, attractive 30 somethings who are doing this. And because I'm single-handed, I don't have a camera person to be recording all of these adventures. So it's really just me, and I can't hold the camera while I'm doing everything. So I decided to write this book. So I wrote a book called Young Salt at 60. And the purpose is really to inspire retired adults to, take on something really big and really different and really new that they've never done before. That a lot of people might think, well, I can't do that because I haven't been a sailor my whole life. Or I can't do that because I haven't been a runner my whole life. I can't do an ultra marathon, for example. But the truth is that if we look at life from the ages of 60 to 90, with the same ambition that we had when we were looking at life from the ages of 30 to 60, it would make a big difference. I think so many people think that once they retire from their big career, that's it, they're retired. If you move on to have a whole nother big chapter, the most exciting chapter, then chances are you're going to live longer and live healthier. So that's what I'm doing.
Deborah, I love that. Much to learn from you here. And you've given me some things to talk to you about. Actually, one thing you just said, which is 60 to 90 might be the most exciting chapter. That's certainly a big claim. So why would this be the most exciting chapter?
Oh, well, I think this is my most exciting chapter because I am really pushing myself through fear. And I am forced to solve problems where I don't have a lot of experience. I need to just be able to look at it and analyze it and figure out what kind of a hack I can come up with to make it work. Because when I'm sailing solo, if something gets stuck or if something gets broken, I'm all I have. I have the tools that I have on board and the supplies and spare parts that I have on board, but that's it. How am I going to get through it? Thank goodness I do have satellite. I have Starlink, and there are YouTube videos about how to resolve a lot of these problems that come up when I'm sailing. So that's lucky. But when you're in the moment, you don't really have time to watch a YouTube video and figure things out. You have to use your intuition.
Deborah, most people listening to the show are likely not sailors. And many of us have been on boats. Many of us have spent time by the water, in the water. But I don't know if any of my experiences can really capture what it might look like to be on a boat by yourself. So perhaps you can take us into a moment from your time, from your day, that really captures what it's like to be out there on your own.
At one point, I was in the Bahamas and I was crossing a 60-mile expanse between islands. And I was 30 miles out and my engine began to overheat. So what you might not know about sailing is that when you have to do a 60-mile crossing, a lot of sailboats are also motoring. So my sails were up, but it was a very light wind because it was, relatively calm. And I wanted it to be good weather. I wanted it to be calm and safe because it was a long way to go. And my engine overheated and I was left to my own devices. I had to figure out what the problem was and fix the engine while I was sailing with the sails up 30 miles offshore, no radio contact, nothing, no cell service, nothing. So luckily I had taken an online diesel engine class and I knew I had to check the impeller and I had to take apart the water pump that pumps the seawater through the engine to cool it because there was something wrong. It wasn't cooling. So I took it apart and I replaced something called the impeller, which is a little paddle wheel that pushes the water through the engine. But I had to do that while the boat was sailing and my head is upside down. I'm getting kind of seasick. It was, scary, but I did it.
That sounds challenging. Wait a second. Did you not have access to YouTube or Starlink?
Friends, it means a lot that you're here. I pour a ton of heart into the show. The research, the interviews, the editing, it's all me, trying to share stories that matter. If Ageless Athlete has ever made you feel seen, inspired you, or just kept you company on a long drive, or better, over a run or a bike ride, I would be so grateful if you considered supporting it. Even a small amount helps keep it going, helps keep bringing the show to you for free. You can chip in at buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. Again, buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. You can find the link on the show notes as well. Thank you for listening and for being part of this.
So that was my first crossing where I had forgotten to turn on the offshore Starlink service. So you can only have Starlink offshore if you turn on the offshore service when you're close enough to shore. Because as soon as you get more than 10 miles from shore, you don't have service anymore, so you can't change your plan and get service. So there I was, too far away to change the plan, and I had forgotten to do it before I left. So that was a pretty dumb mistake that I will not make again. So
Was it quite scary?
yeah, it was scary. Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
And were you able to get things figured out pretty quickly, or were there moments where you felt like, goodness, maybe I'll have to get rescued, or this could end badly?
I couldn't imagine. I had to solve it. Because the only other answer would be just to wait and, wait for the wind to pick up. And I mean, I could have waited and just used sail power to get to shore, but I was trying to get to shore during a calm and before a storm. So I didn't want to be I didn't want to be out there for too long as I was making this crossing. I didn't want to be out there in the storm.
I think, that sounds challenging indeed. I'm just drawing an analogy to, let's say, being in an automobile and being stuck on the side of a highway and not having access to cell service or AAA. And I mean, that itself can be quite scary if you're really out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But then we know that we can usually find somebody passing by who might stop and give us help. Let's say land life is kind of geared up for meeting those kinds of unexpected situations. But being on a boat, you really are out. And if you're not in an area that's not so busy, you might be out there for a while before rescue happens.
Exactly. And also be pushed off course. Because if you don't have the ability to keep your boat on course, you might not even be in an area where people go by.
That's correct. You have to be in the right lanes. Yes, you're not following dotted zebra lines.
Right.
You are following these courses and these routes, which can change as well based on conditions.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Deborah, taking a step back, so just trying to understand your journey a little bit. You were a teacher and a principal, and I'm guessing that this change to move your life onto a boat, it didn't just happen overnight. You likely had been working towards it. Tell us what drew you into this idea, aspiration, maybe this dream to get to where you are today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I retired and did some traveling. Like most people who retire, they want to do more traveling, that sort of thing. And I traveled to Southeast Asia, and I was there during COVID, which was great actually, because the beaches were empty, the streets were empty, the hotels were empty. I could name my price wherever I went. It was lovely. But I had to come back because my visa was running out and my US passport was also about to expire. So I came back from Malaysia to Massachusetts, renewed my passport, I discovered that I could go to the Dominican Republic because they have an overstay program, and I could stay there for as long as I wanted, as long as I paid the tax on the way back out. I went to the Dominican Republic, and I found this beautiful little town. There were very few Americans there, mostly French expats and German expats, and I loved it. And I loved the Dominican people, the Dominican culture. The beaches were gorgeous. And I met this one guy from Vermont, and he convinced me to go to Vermont with him. And we began watching these YouTube videos of people who were sailing on their catamarans in the tropics. And we thought, wow, that's really the way to see beaches. When you have your own boat and you can go to whatever beach you want, and you can go to these uninhabited islands and you're not in a herd of tourists. And so we just got really into it, and we started taking sailing lessons, and we ended up buying this boat together, and we learned to sail this boat on Lake Champlain. And then the long and short of it is he lost interest in sailing, and I gained more interest in sailing because I would stay on the boat during the week while he was working. And during the week, I would sail single-handed, which I really started to feel pretty capable doing, and I really enjoyed it a lot. I loved being out on the water alone. So he and I went our separate ways, and I bought the boat from him, and I decided to equip it and sail it down the Champlain Canal and into the Hudson River, and then into New York City, and then along the coast all the way down to Florida, and then across to the Bahamas, and then all the way down the islands to Georgetown, which is in the southern part of the Bahamas.
Yeah. Well, one thing certainly sounds smart. Anytime you start something audacious, having a team or at least maybe one other person can help break down things a little bit. And sounds like that was great for you to have that partnership.
Yeah, we really got into it. We decided, and I still think that, I go to marinas and I see a lot of boats sitting there on the docks, empty, nobody's using them. And some boats sit for a whole summer season up here in Massachusetts on the dock, and they never even get sailed. Or, they get put in the water in the spring and they get taken out in the fall, and people might use them 2 or 3 weekends, and that's it. And a boat is very expensive, and finding a place to keep it is expensive. And if you're going to have it, use it. So my feeling is I just wanted to go all in with this and be able to go where I wanted to go, have my belongings, everything I own is on board, and I can be as free as I want to be.
Deborah, tell us what might have been maybe the most challenging bit of this whole process of, let's say, moving from land to sea.
Laundry, definitely laundry.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the process of just well, for example, a part of me harbors this ambition of also living and sailing a boat at some point, because honestly, it would allow me to go and surf and climb in places that I couldn't access easily. It would also allow me to live in a spot where I'm not encumbered by, let's say, traffic laws and zoning laws, right? So it is such a it is a kind of a seductive idea.
Uh-huh.
But I don't even know where to get started. Yes, there are YouTube videos out there, and yes, one can just start looking for boats. So just in that process of figuring out, what was it like the purchase journey? Was it understanding how to keep the boat in running order? Was it learning about maritime laws? Was it learning about
Well, for me, the biggest challenge was the mechanical stuff. Because I was a teacher. I know a lot about reading and writing and language, and I know a lot about leadership and things that have nothing to do with anything mechanical. I had a facilities manager who dealt with all the mechanical stuff at the school. So this was a big learning curve for me. But in terms of learning how to sail, we went to the sailing center in Lake Champlain, and we borrowed little tiny boats, little sailboats, dinghy sailing is what they call it. And we took out a 420, which is a very popular small sailboat. And, the guy at the sailing center showed us how to put the sails up and how to use it. And we went out, and it was really challenging. And at the end of that day, I was like, I don't know if I really think I can do this. But we did it again and again and got better at it. And then we went online and we did a search, and we found in the Bahamas, there was a place that offered American Sailing Association certification classes. And the American Sailing Association has these standard classes that are offered all over the country and also in the Bahamas. And then when we actually bought a boat, we had a survey. So it's an inspection where a certified surveyor comes and goes through every single part of the boat and tells us about the condition of every single part of the boat. And that was a great learning experience too. We had a wonderful surveyor and we had, at that point had looked at a lot of different boats. So
Sounds like a home inspection.
Way more detailed than a home inspection. Way, way, way more detailed. And then we were at a marina. We had the boat at a marina. And the marina staff, the kids that worked the fuel dock, and they would help us tie up when we came in. And the people that did services at the marina, there was an engine service guy, there was an electrical service guy, and they all helped me a lot when I was single handing. And I had to tip them because I wanted them to come running when I came in. I would say, I'm coming in. Can somebody help me tie up? I felt like they were really wonderful, and they gave me a lot of confidence.
Excellent. And yeah, you sought out help, and maybe this is a lesson, if you need help, ask for it, and people will often respond.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, just being a beginner again, and I hear you on the mechanics part. I mean, I feel like, yes, I also don't have a mechanic's thumb. It's not one of my gifts as well. So I certainly find that bit intimidating about taking on something like what you're doing. What might have been, again, one of your messiest or maybe most humbling moments as you were learning to adopt this new lifestyle?
Wow. There were so many. There were a lot of times when I would come into a dock and it wasn't pretty. I would be coming in sideways and I wouldn't be able to get control of the boat, and I'd be worried that I was going to hit another boat or hit the dock, and things like that happened. But luckily, no major issues. I think. One time I borrowed a boat from the sailing center by myself, and they didn't let me take a 420, which had two sails. They said you can take a boat with one sail called a laser. And I went out, and it was a pretty windy day, and the boat capsized. When I tried to turn the boat, it flipped over upside down. And
Wow.
Yeah, and I had my life vest on, and I had my phone in the pocket of the life vest. And I figured out how to get the boat to flip back up again. I pulled down on the centerboard and the boat flipped back up again. And then I got back on. I climbed back on. I was on my way again, but then I still had to turn. And then I turned, but every time I turned, the boat flipped over again. So this was happening like maybe 4 or 5, 6 times. And finally I was like, I'm not going to be able to get myself back to shore. So luckily I had my iPhone in my life jacket. And so I had to call the sailing center and ask them to come and tow me in. And it was so embarrassing. Oh God. And I said, I'm never doing this again.
I mean, the idea of getting caught, maybe this is irrational, but like the idea of having your vehicle like capsize and yeah, that just seems scary. But amazing. I didn't know that there was a way you could just handle one part of the boat and flip it back up.
Well, yeah. I mean, these are little boats. I mean, you go surfing, right? So the surfboard gets flipped all the time, and then you get back up and you get back on it. So these little boats are like giant surfboards. They're not like where you have everything you own on board like this boat. But they're good boats to learn about the wind and how to the sail has to be in relationship to the wind in order to get the most power out of the wind to push you in the right direction. The basics of how the wind moves the boat are best learned with those little boats. Yeah.
And Deborah, you mentioned, laundry. That sounds like,
Uh,
yeah, that sounds, it wasn't the first thing that came to my mind. But yeah, do you have to just, dock?
So I do my laundry. I have to bring it to a laundromat. I put it in my dinghy and I try to find places where I am within walking distance of a laundromat from the dinghy dock to a laundromat where I can do laundry. In the Bahamas, I don't really care so much because all I'm really wearing is a swimsuit or like shorts, and I can just, rinse them out and put them on the lifelines. And you're not in an anchorage with a lot of fancy people. It's really just like very laid back, and you can put your laundry out to dry and nobody cares. But here in New England, in Newport, I'm not hanging my laundry out to dry. No, it's not.
Are you able to combine errands though? Like, can you go and do laundry at the same time? Maybe also pick up groceries?
Yeah, well, for groceries, I usually call in an order to have them delivered to the dinghy dock. So about every 2 weeks, I make a big order on Instacart and I have it delivered to a dinghy dock that is, where the parking lot is close enough where I can just move the bags into the dinghy and then I drive them to the boat and move them onto the boat. So the grocery part that's how I manage that.
Okay. Maybe Deborah, take us into a day. I'm sure every day could be very different depending on where you are, what you're doing. But maybe can you describe to us the routine of a typical day? Maybe just so we get an idea of what it is.
The weather will always be determining whether it's a go day or not. Today was not really a go day. It was kind of on the cusp. I could have gone today, but I sailed 6 hours yesterday to get to Newport, and the wind was going to be really pretty heavy, like on the heavier end of what I like to sail in today. So I didn't go because I also wanted to go for a run. So I woke up this morning and I had my coffee and I went for a nice long run. I took the dinghy to shore. I had to find a place where I could tie up and leave the dinghy, and I locked it because it looked like it's kind of a biggish city here compared to where I usually am. And I went for a long run. I came back to the boat, and I had a lot of hot water because I ran my engine yesterday, and so the engine heats the water. So I was able to take a nice long shower and wash my hair and everything. So that was lovely. And then I did a sewing project. So I have my sewing machine on board and I had a curtain. Curtains get, everything gets kind of moldy and damp because it's in the water environment. It's just very humid all the time and a lot of salt in the air and everything. So I had a curtain that was getting it was moldy and gross. I have fabric on board. So I sewed a new curtain for that particular window today and installed that. And then what did I do? Oh, and then I made an Instagram post for my Instagram account showing a really crazy mistake that I made yesterday when I was sailing. I got my lines tangled and I had to get them untangled because it would have been a really big problem. One of the lines was the line that holds the mainsail up. And if I hadn't have been able to get it untangled, I would never have been able to get the mainsail down unless I cut the line. And that would have been a really big problem because it would have gone up through the very top of the mast. Luckily, I was in an empty bay and there weren't any other boats around me and it wasn't stormy conditions or anything. So I was able to put the boat on autopilot and spend half an hour untangling these lines. But it was pretty crazy.
Had you untangled these lines before, or was this another one of those like learn as you go moments?
It was a very unusual situation. It was such an unusual situation.
What I'm sensing here is that one needs to acquire some foundational skills in sailing
Yeah.
before one embarks on this. Not just foundational skills, maybe even a bit of experience, because you don't want to have gone through the paces of acquiring a boat, all of that. Maybe like your ex-partner did, and then suddenly realize that this is not the thing for you. But other than that, it sounds like once one has acquired those fundamentals, there are many things one is able to learn on the go. Like it
Oh,
might
yeah.
be humbling, it might be, just might feel very intense in the moment, but you
Right.
can overcome most of those things. So I think a lot of us get stymied in life, and maybe I'm drawing a bigger metaphor here, because they're like, oh my God, I don't want to start this massive thing because I just don't have all the 2,500 things, dialed in. But I
Mhm.
think what we're learning from you is like, as long as you get maybe some of those basics locked in, you can just go on.
I think you have to get the basics locked in, but I think you also have to devote a lot of time to talking to other sailors and watching sailing videos and reading about sailing and looking carefully at other boats and the way they anchor and the way they maneuver, and going sailing with other sailors on their boats, having good sailors come on my boat and sail with me. In order for the insurance company to insure us, we had to have a captain come on board and sail with us and then sign off that we were capable of managing the boat. It was a test to see whether we were insurable, and we passed the test, which was great.
And yes, also sounds like not only are there communities of helpful people, but there are all these resources available
Mhm.
in this world of sailing to allow, because there are many, let's say, careers, vocations, whatnot, where the learning curve or whatnot is either very steep or it's kind of fenced in.
Mhm.
And it sounds like once we commit to, again, getting into the world of sailing, there's a lot of infra available to
Yeah,
help us
there
get going.
really is. And also, the social media, there are Facebook groups and Instagram sites that, I follow hundreds of sailors on Instagram, and they follow me, and I read through comments about certain situations, and I read the whole list of comments and differing perspectives on things, and it's really good because it helps me understand what to do before something happens. I'm always trying to get ahead of what might happen.
Yeah. Again, the internet comes to the rescue.
Mhm.
And yes, it sounds like you've been savvy about just leaning into that resource. Again, like, you left this life behind. I'm guessing, you spend years inside schools in structure and routine, and now
Mhm.
your life is just
Mhm.
it's totally different. Do you think you
Yeah,
were prepared?
as prepared as I could have been. I don't know. I have a friend who has been preparing for years, like 5 years, to do what I did. And she doesn't feel like she's ready yet. And I'm trying to say, well, at some point you have to just rip off the Band-Aid and do it, because you're not going to have the answer to every challenging situation that happens at sea if it hasn't happened to you, and you don't know what's going to happen. You can't get ahead of every single thing. So when things happen, you just have to try to keep a level head and analyze the situation, and use the tools that you have access to solve the problem. And then when you do that, you're going to learn. You can't help but learn. I've learned so much about my engine and my lines and my sails and my shackles and cleats and how to tie things and just everything. I've learned about my my water system, and the water system is a big one, and my fuel system, and my electrical system, because I have power on the boat because I have 800 watts of solar and 400 amps of lithium batteries. And that gives me the power that I need for my Starlink, for my refrigerator, to power my devices, and to start my engine battery, and also my lights, you know.
Hello, friends. Just a quick break. This is not an ad. If you have been enjoying these conversations, I would love for you to subscribe to my newsletter. It is where I go deeper, sharing stories, reflections, and behind the scenes insights that don't always make it into the podcast. I write about what I'm learning from elite athletes and how to stay ageless in body and mind. If you have ever wanted a thoughtful, inspiring read that ties it all together: training, aging, mindset, and awe. You will love this. You can find the link in the show notes or just head to agelessathlete.co. Again, www.agelessathlete.co, that is, to sign up. And yeah, just a couple of emails a month, and you can unsubscribe anytime. Absolutely no spam ever. Okay, back to the show.
You were a teacher for a long time, so you were certainly in the industry of education and learning. So
Yeah.
there's that side of sailing. But on the other side, I'm sure there have been just these incredible moments and opportunities that have come your way because you happen to be on a boat. Maybe you
Yeah.
could take us to maybe a moment or something that you do that makes all of that learning, all of that uncertainty and toil just completely
Yeah.
worth it.
I mean, yesterday I was sailing and it was so beautiful out there. There were very few boats on the water because, you know, it's the end of the season here in New England. And it was a weekday and it was just lovely. The weather was perfect. The clouds were spectacular. The sunset, you know, last night was spectacular. And and even the night before, you know, and I got to go exploring around a harbor that I had never been in before, even though it was pretty close to Martha's Vineyard. I had never been in there before in my boat. And I was able to go out in the little boat in the dinghy and go exploring and see all these really neat little coves and private islands. And it was gorgeous. And I just felt like I'm so lucky to be able to do this on a daily basis. I see magnificent beauty on a daily basis without even having to like really make an effort.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, you know, my commute from shore is spectacularly gorgeous. So that's great. And, you know, the other thing too is that I got fuel yesterday at a dock and I had to bring my boat to a dock, and I was able to do it with confidence. And every time I do it with confidence and it feels easy. Getting on the dock felt easy. Leaving the dock felt easy. Every time it feels easy, I feel like I'm just one step closer toward being really capable and competent with this. Because a lot of times it's really stressful. Not gonna lie.
And I'm guessing, yeah, that's, you know, beyond just the natural beauty. That's also just being able to gain confidence in one's self-sufficiency. I mean, that's also so heartening and empowering, right? Because, you know, you didn't just sign up on a cruise ship to get these views. You have earned each and every one of those sunrises and sunsets.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and there are definitely challenging times when I really want to give up. I went to Boston to see my kids recently, and I came back to Martha's Vineyard. I had left my boat on Martha's Vineyard, and to get to Boston, I had taken the tourist ferry boat, and I came back on the tourist ferry boat, and it was late at night, and we had been in Boston traffic, and it wasn't late at night. It was just about sunset time, and I was trying to get my little boat. I was getting in my little boat to go back to my boat before it got dark. And my little boat engine wouldn't start. And no matter what I did, it wouldn't start. There were a few things that I knew to check inside the engine cover. and it wasn't working. And so I had to start rowing, and I had anchored my big boat pretty far away because I had gone away for a few days. And so it was a really long row, and I knew I wasn't going to make it before dark. But I was, rowing, and I was so tired, and I was just so, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore, And somebody came along and gave me a tow and towed me to my boat, which was great. And then the next day I was able to row to shore, which was closer. And a mechanic, a friend of a friend, came and took my engine, met me on shore, took my engine to his shop, and got a new carburetor. That's what it needed. But it's just, it's not like breaking down on the side of the road and being able to call an Uber.
Yeah,
So-
no, certainly. And Deborah, like, I think the challenge that I find when I'm thinking about this, and maybe people listening to will as well, is, okay, so not to be rude, but you seem like just this friendly, sociable person, right? And
I can be.
now, yeah, for sure. But, I don't know what the current modern image of a sailor is, but you moved from, let's say, a more mainstream lifestyle, if there's such a thing, to this lifestyle. I think what I'm wondering is, how did you adapt to just being on your own? I believe you're doing this thing on your own, right?
Well, as scary as it is sometimes, I really like being alone. And I will tell you why. Because a school principal and a mom, I was a school principal and a mom, and I never had a minute alone. Never. I mean, it was always somebody wanted to talk to me. It was like I had 100 teachers in my school, and everybody would say, "Have you got a minute? Have you got a minute?" And it would just be like a line of people all day long wanting to talk to me about problems, and the solutions were often very politically loaded, and it was difficult. It was a difficult job managing that many people. There were 1,000 children and 100 staff, including secretaries, bus drivers, custodians, nurses, everybody, and then the parents, that was a huge thing too. So being alone on a sailboat is just dandy after all that. Yeah.
You had a very different life, and I can sense how you have earned this respite, maybe the solitude.
Yeah.
But would you recommend this, like the solo seafaring lifestyle, for like others who haven't had your life? Maybe they've been working in desks, by themselves.
I will say that Zoom helps me a lot. So I am able to stay connected. I'm an alcoholic, and I haven't had a drink in 33 years. And I attend meetings with my sober friends online on Zoom, and I'm able to stay connected to my community that way, and I am able to be of service that way also, and that really grounds me, and it gives me a sense of purpose. So I enjoy that. I'm able to connect with my kids easily because with the technology, FaceTime videos and texting all the time. And so it's not like even though I've been alone all day today, I've probably talked to 10 people today. No, more than that.
Sure.
I've probably talked to 30 people today. Yeah.
Sure.
So
Do you think, though, okay, a contrarian question, do you think, though, that you could have made this possible without the constant availability of the internet?
that's another thing about learning to sail now compared to and sailing solo to the Bahamas and back in 2025 compared to doing it 50 years ago. Because now I have a chart plotter that's like a little video game. I see a picture of where my boat is compared to all the land around it. I can see my compass heading. I can see how far away the other boats are, and I can tap on them on the screen and see how fast they're going. I can see which way the wind is blowing. I have all sorts of weather apps. I have an anchor alarm that's going to wake me up in the middle of the night and let me know if my boat is moving too far away from the anchor. I have all sorts of safety things that, that people just didn't have before. Radar for seeing where the thunderstorms are, and, just tons of tools that make it possible for somebody with as little experience as me to do this.
And absolutely. I mean, you have the technology that allows you to sustain this, but then the same technology also allows you to sustain all the personal connections that even
Yes.
though you are physically alone, you're not maybe as lone, you're not lonely in the same way. Again, somebody 50 years ago. So I think another thing, we're learning from you is that technology has allowed now the ability to pursue lifestyles, vocations that maybe even 5 years ago would seem impossible.
Right.
Would seem so difficult. And I think maybe this is such an important lesson. I don't know if you have any comments on this one, where people are contemplating, hey, what should we do post-retirement? I mean, there's a lot more than taking cruises or learning how to golf.
Right.
Because you can go and do like some pretty darn rad things.
I was pretty much a digital nomad before COVID. I was teaching online, and I was teaching online in Asia. And so I just had my laptop wherever I went, and I was using, if they didn't have Wi-Fi, I was using my phone hotspot as Wi-Fi. But wherever I went, I had enough of a connection to be able to work. And then when COVID hit, everybody became familiar with Zoom. And, so then there was access to everybody, not just my students. And so that was good. And, but I was already doing the nomadic thing pretty much before I got into sailing. So this is the nomadic thing on water. And basically my boat is just like a tiny house. It's set up the same way as all the cute little tiny houses that I see in the magazines. I have 2 bedrooms, and I have, a little sitting area. I've got right now I'm sitting in the cockpit. I have a dinner table out here, and, it's a tiny house basically. And it's perfectly comfortable for one person. So if I had another person with me on board all the time, I think it might get a little tight.
Yeah. And in that case, I can upgrade to a bigger van, and you can upgrade to a bigger boat if it comes to it.
Uh-huh.
So beyond the other technicalities we have covered, like what is the financial outlay of being able to do what you're doing?
You can buy a boat. There's a boat for every budget. Okay. So I have a 19-year-old friend who she came on board and sailed with me for a little while last spring. It was my second trip down to the Bahamas. And I needed to get from North Carolina to Florida very quickly because it was very, very cold. And she wanted to come with me. So I brought this girl with me, and she was so excited, and she loved it, and went back and saved her pennies and bought herself a sailboat and lived on her sailboat all summer long. And she had to row she didn't have an engine on her little boat. She bought a very little sailboat for, I want to say $2,500. And she rowed her little boat out to that sailboat every day. And she was working 3 jobs on shore, and she made it happen. You can do it on very little money. Most people, my age, are interested in having something that's a little bit more comfortable, because her sailboat was only 23 feet or something. So a lot of people, families do it, and they have their kids, they might have 3 or 4 kids even living on board on a catamaran. So a catamaran is, a sailboat with 2 hulls, and most of them have 4 cabins, and most of them have 3 or 4 bathrooms also. So and then of course there's mega yachts, right? So the billionaires are able to have mega yachts with, a full staff who take care of driving the boat and docking the boat and everything. And all they have to do is walk onto the boat, or have their helicopter fly them onto the boat. So there really is. There is a boat for every budget. But if you want to be able to go places, you have to have a budget to maintain the boat. So you have to pay for boat insurance, which is pretty expensive. And then you also have to budget for at least 10% of the value of the boat every year for maintenance. That's just fixing things. And I think that's conservative. I think it's really more like 15%. But yeah, fixing things and cleaning things and having
And these
things.
are costs when you're quite handy yourself, or these are costs when you're outsourcing to others?
No, this is when you're handy yourself.
Oh, wow. So let's say
Yeah.
if your boat is, I have no idea, but let's say if your boat is like 100, I don't know, 200K. 200K, I don't know if it's a cheap boat or an expensive. If it's a 200K boat, then you are accounting for 20 to 30K in just basic maintenance.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Okay.
Because you need to have your engine, the engine needs to be serviced. There's always things that break that need to be redone. Wear and tear, the ultraviolet rays of the sun and the salt moisture in the air creates corrosion, and there's an awful lot of things that break. Sails rip and you need to buy a new sail. A new sail is $5,000 easy. The dinghy engine needs to be serviced. I just spent $800 on that. So you do have to be able to have that kind of money budgeted for when stuff happens, like who knows what's next. My refrigerator has been running fine. I haven't had to replace it. It's been running for 2.5 years, but if I have to replace it, it's going to be a few $1,000s. And the same thing for the little mechanism that raises and lowers my anchor chain.
Right, right.
It sounds a little clunky right now. And I'm thinking, oh man, how much is this going to cost to replace? The parts don't cost, well, the parts are expensive, but having somebody do the work, that's what's really expensive. In New England, they get $175 an hour just to do the simplest task.
I'm wondering, because you're able to sail overseas, and I know this is kind of a funny question, but like the Bahamas, for example, maybe labor is there. You can get some things done in places where it's there. But...
Yes and no. First of all, you can't get parts in the Bahamas. So that is very difficult. So you really have to bring spare parts with you, because having parts sent from the United States to the Bahamas is very complicated. Their mail system is very unreliable. So that's challenging. Yes, you can get labor in places like the Dominican Republic, for example, and the Caribbean. You can get labor cheaper, but is it going to be skillful labor? And I mean, in an emergency, yes, that is what you have to do. But, if you're in the Bahamas and something, significantly complicated goes wrong, then you have to go to Nassau to take care of it. But you probably wouldn't even want to do that if you could get yourself back to Florida.
I mean, Deborah, yes, there's some real costs to adopting this lifestyle. But if one is comparing it to maintaining a residence and a lifestyle in a place which is as posh as Martha's Vineyard, it does seem like that there are real savings here, because the boat is both your home and your mode of transport.
Yes.
Do you see more and more people around you, let's say retirees, middle-agers, who are taking on to this lifestyle? I'm just wondering how much of an outlier might you be?
I think when I'm cruising, and now, it's kind of a tribal thing, we're a group of nomads that go south for the winter and north for the summer. And we all have these boat cards, and we exchange boat cards. So we meet each other and we keep our eyes on each other, and, we're able to bump into each other. Like I might see somebody I know here in Newport, and then I might not see them again until North Carolina. And then I might see them again in Georgia, and then again in the Bahamas. You just see certain boats along the way, and you just start chatting with people, and we become kind of a community. like a little subculture of nautical nomads. And
Yeah.
and so that part is good, and we help each other, definitely help each other. But it's challenging for sure to do the regular things. Like, for example, having a mailing address. You can't have something sent to your boat, so you have to try to figure out where you're going to be and who you can ask in that location to receive your mail, and hold it for you so that when you
Oh, so
get
are you telling me that Amazon doesn't have boats that will deliver
not yet,
goods?
not yet, but the drone service is coming.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
the drones start dropping packages, they should be able to drop a package on my boat.
That's
Right.
right. That's
So
right.
I'm hopeful.
Deborah, you have written this book,
Uh-huh.
Young Salt at 60.
Mhm.
I love the title. It's fun, it's irreverent, and I think it really captures the essence of you were doing. So what do you hope? Who did you write this book for?
I wrote the book for people that want to learn about the sailing live aboard lifestyle, but also people who are in their 60s or thinking about retirement, and they don't know what they want to do when they retire. And it might not even occur to them that they can do something that they've never had any experience with before. So a lot of people ask me, have you been sailing all your life? And then when I tell them that I didn't start until I was 60, they're shocked, because people don't think of your 60s as a starting point for anything. And that's tragic, really, because especially like me, I've invested a lot of time and energy in my health and well-being. And so what's the point of being healthy and retired and 60 if I'm not going to go out and do something fantastic? A lot of people, I would say the vast majority of people who retire are thinking that they're going to have more time for exercise class, more time for travel, more time for working on their favorite volunteer committee, and maybe more time for family. But that's really kind of it. Or more time for a hobby that they may already have, like the guys that want to spend more time golfing when they retire, right? But to learn something brand new and go all in with it is a possibility that I want people to know and embrace.
That is so true. I mean, because just the big metaphor, right? Sure, you might inspire a few people to just stop dreaming and go and start sailing. But then you are going to motivate maybe a larger cohort of people to use that as, again, a metaphor, a launching point to go chase whatever wild idea that they have.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be sailing. It could be, opening up a cheese factory. It could be something completely new. The idea is something completely new and different, a total shift from anything you've ever known before. Because I think that is where you can become really a passionate learner, and you can be truly fascinated with all this new information, challenged for sure, but fascinated at the same time to be doing something so different than what you've ever done before. It'd be like a mechanic deciding to write a book, or a chef deciding to become to become an airplane pilot. You can become anything. That's the point. And a lot of people say, oh, you're lucky. I wish I could sail. No. It's not a wish. It's not a wish. It's like, you don't want to sail. You don't want to sail, because if you wanted to sail, you would sail.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do? Because if you want to do it, if you really, really want to do it, you should be able to make it happen in the potentially 30 years left that you have to live from the age of 60 to when you expire. I mean, a lot of people are living to 90. A lot of people are going to live to 100.
I mean, the part that you said at the beginning, which really is such a maybe a little bit aspirational, which is, let this chunk of time be your most exciting one
Yeah.
yet.
Why not?
I want to take us into this part of the conversation. I call it the ageless section.
Yeah.
Deborah, when you look back across these chapters in your lives, the ones that I've learned about, which is teacher, learner, sailor, and also writer, book author,
Mhm.
is there a thread that ties them all together?
Yeah, I guess it's all about challenging myself, really, and not being okay with being bored. I like when I've learned something and I'm good at it, I'm looking for the next thing to learn and become good at. And I really attribute that to my parents, who raised me to know about a lot of different things. They exposed us to a lot of different things. We went skiing a lot. We went camping a lot. My mom was an artist. We did a lot of artwork. We had a basketball hoop and played basketball. We did all the chores that could be done. I rode horses. My neighbor down the street had some horses. So I grew up outside of New York City, where the mindset is that anything is possible. In New York, anything is possible. You can become or do or achieve anything if you live in New York. And it's all about tenacity also. You have to, if you work hard, you can achieve it. So that's kind of what I have done in my life, is just to try to take on new challenges. And then when I get bored, take on another new challenge and another new challenge.
And Deborah, maybe again, like a contrarian question. I see many people around mid-age, and they seem to be doing more conventional things, and they seem to be thriving from at least the outset.
Mm-hmm.
So why is it important to take on this type of adventure that you're on?
I definitely think it keeps me in a younger frame of mind. It keeps me from feeling like I have been there and done that. I'm growing. Like I kind of feel like I'm a young sprout sailor, and that's a good thing. To feel like I'm youthful in some way. In spite of the wrinkles and the sunspots and the creaky joints, but I try to keep moving. I don't want to slow down.
Yes. I mean, that's so much of the theme of this podcast, which is about growth and about taking on discomfort, even when it's not required. Willingly put oneself in the path of risk and fear. And this is another question I could ask everybody. What does being ageless mean to you?
It just means that you are free of the confines of the number of your years. So you're not trapped into a certain lifestyle because of your age. When I was a young school teacher in my 20s, I got married in my late 20s. We bought a house. We had 2 children. I was the school teacher. I had friends who were, sort of well funded by their rich parents, and they were flitting around the world on sailboats. And I was being super responsible and going to work and doing what I was raised to believe that, you do. You go, you get a job, you pay your bills, you do the next, And I did all that. And so now I feel like, this is my turn to go and be footloose and fancy free. So there's that. There is a little bit of that idea that I have earned this kind of freedom. And I've set myself up so that I can afford it. Although, like I said, there's a boat for every budget. Anybody could live on a boat, no matter how they set themselves up. I think that doing this now is is making me feel like I'm doing all that stuff. Like I am 30 again. Like I am that trust fund kid who gets to run around and do all that, do whatever I want, whenever I want. So.
And do you think there are some decisions you made your own in life that kind of set this up? Obviously, there was some inspiration because you saw others living where you did to get into sailing. And again, like the things that give me the most joy don't cost a lot of money.
I have a real minimalist philosophy. And I haven't had a car in 2.5 years, and I do not miss it one bit. I don't miss it one bit. I could walk faster than the traffic on Martha's Vineyard this summer, finding a place to park, all of it. I don't miss having a car at all. And so that's lovely. But I also don't miss anything in my house. I moved out of a 3,000 square foot house, and all I took was my coffee mug that my daughter gave me. My daughter gave me a really cool fishy coffee mug, and I love it. And that's what I brought with me, that and some clothes. I left a huge closet full of clothes, all my school principal clothes, right? I was supervising all these women that wore all these outfits, and I had to look pretty decent every day, and I left all that stuff behind. I can only fit a few pairs of shoes on this boat, and my swimsuits and my my fleece for when it's cold, and I have a couple of things to go out to dinner. But you know what? When you're a nomad, it's wonderful because nobody's seen your outfits before. How many bowls and plates and spoons and things do I need? I can only eat out of one spoon at a time. So I don't really need a whole house full of stuff. When I left my house on the vineyard, I counted 13 cutting boards. 13. Ridiculous. How many cutting boards does a person need? Really? I've really come to be mindful of stuff. And because you don't own stuff owns you. You have to clean it. You have to move it. You have to organize it. I cannot tell you how many weekends of my life I spent trying to find the right curtains to match the sofa, to match the rug, to all that decorating stuff, cleaning out all the closets, cleaning the kids' closets and the kids' stuff and making sure that they had their back to schools. All the stuff management is overwhelming and not rewarding. There's no spiritual or social purpose related to the management of stuff. And yet that is what Americans do with their weekends. They deal with their stuff. And then the other thing they do is they show off their stuff. So they have to have parties so that everybody can come and see all their stuff. And they have to wear the right stuff. I am so over it with stuff. I am done with it. Really, I don't care about any highfalutin anything. I've been lucky enough to live in rich places and be surrounded in rich people, and I get it, and I don't want it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it. I really don't want it. It owns them, and I don't want to be owned by stuff.
That is such a simple answer, the whole paradox of choice. If you just take the choices away, when you only have, like you said, limited cutlery, limited clothes, limited options for entertainment, I think one tends to maximize and not get bogged down by those decisions, which are, how long do you expect to keep following this lifestyle?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I told myself that I would do it until I felt like I was really good at it. So the easier it becomes, the more I want to keep doing it. I guess the answer is, while I'm healthy enough, and I do have children, and I don't have grandchildren yet. Maybe when I have grandbabies, I will want to spend more time visiting my children. But I don't know. I'm kind of afraid that I'm not going to like land life again. I really don't. I really don't miss it at all. I don't know where if I bought a house, I don't know where I would want it to be. It's hard for me to pick one place where I would want to live compared to living in this place where I can live everywhere.
What's a dream place you would love to sail to in the next few years?
The Bahamas. I think it's going to take me the rest of my life to explore all those islands. There's hundreds of islands there to explore. And because I've been to a lot of the other islands in the Caribbean, and they are overrun with American tourists, and they are now becoming expensive and crowded, and the cruise ships go there and they unload hundreds of people, and it's gotten very like commercial. Everybody's trying to sell you stuff, and I don't like that. I'd rather go to the beach with nothing except a sarong and a book. And just, I don't like the beaches with the chairs and the umbrellas and I don't like, and all the people around, and I don't like that.
You have taken on this entirely new lifestyle. Maybe what is one practice, a daily habit, maybe a routine that keeps you centered?
I believe in prayer and meditation every day, everyday prayer and meditation, and exercise, absolutely exercise. So every day I do my crunches, and 6 days a week I run, if I can. When I'm in the Bahamas, I can't really run. So what I do down there is I swim for an hour and a half, and I hike for 2 hours. So I do 3.5 hours of exercise every day in the Bahamas. I enjoy that.
Yeah, and that is outside of all the other kind of movement that is needed to keep your operation going.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have to stay strong because I need to be able to lift things, and I need to be able to pull on lines, and I need my strength, and I need my balance and my agility. And it's really good for my head to get my endorphins. It helps me be just mentally a lot more clear, especially as I age and I forget things, and I want to be learning things. I have to be mentally fit.
I'm curious. I mean, you come across, as somebody who's just maybe in some ways at the peak of their existence. At the same time, do you have any fears about aging?
Every now and then I feel like if I'm sitting down on the beach and I have to get up, I feel like that's harder. And I feel my age in certain way, like times when I have to move my body, I feel certain things are harder than they used to be, but there's not much I can do about it. Medical care and all of that is difficult when you're on a boat, like going to a doctor and things like that. You just can't get in the car and go to the urgent care or the emergency room. So you have to try to get ahead of everything as much as you can. I don't have a heck of a lot of faith in it. I hate to say it, but the American medical system is not that between that and the insurance and it's
a tough one. Yeah.
It's, I almost feel like I'm better off just not ever going to a doctor. And so if I just keep myself healthy, then I won't have to go to the doctor, and I won't have to take the medicine they want to put me on. I won't have to pay for the tests they want to run on me. I won't have to, if they find something wrong with me, I won't have to spend the rest of my very precious life in a hospital dealing with it. I'd rather be on my boat. Thank you very much. So I have to just try to not think about it.
Deborah, you have, it seems like you're doing all of those things, including I think the one that I think I love the most, which is just finding growth with the new things you've taken on, because it keeps our faculty so alive when we take on new challenges. Maybe one last thing on this topic is, are there things you're doing with your diet, your nutrition?
Yeah.
You want to talk about?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really trying to, I try to cut down as many eliminate processed foods as much as possible. I'm also really concerned about microplastics, and I am trying to avoid eating things that come wrapped in plastic. It's a huge concern. And it's also it's a concern for me because I have to get rid of the garbage, right? So I don't like to have a lot of things that come in a lot of packaging. So there's that aspect of it. I only drink water now. That's the only thing that I drink. I don't have to store, because I don't have to store things. I don't have to drink calories. So I drink filtered water, and I try to eat a decent amount of protein and avoid too many carbs. I don't eat bread. I don't eat sugar. I don't eat pasta. Sometimes I'll have rice, and sometimes I'll have oatmeal. Yeah, but that's about
Love it. Thank you. Yeah, just final question, Deborah. Your best years, are they behind you or are they ahead of you?
Oh, I think they're ahead of me for sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely ahead of me. Yeah.
Awesome. I can also see that all the things that you're doing today and have done in the past to bring you here are just preparing you for some adventures and vitality.
Yeah, I don't really know what the rest is going to look like, but I definitely feel like it'll be good. I feel very, optimistic about it.
That's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Ageless Athlete podcast. I hope you enjoyed this show just as much as I enjoyed creating and producing it. Whether you are an athlete looking to push your limits or someone striving to maintain a healthy, active lifestyle as you age, there is always something new to learn. From Ageless Athlete, we bring you a fresh episode each and every week. If you liked what you heard, we would love it if you would take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an update. And if you really liked what you heard, please leave us a review, crush those 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. It helps us reach more people who are passionate about staying strong and resilient, no matter their age. Don't forget to visit our website and leave your email so I can send you occasional insights, stories, and tips to keep you inspired and motivated on your journey. You can also follow us on Instagram at Ageless Athlete Podcast and on YouTube at Ageless Athlete Podcast as well for even more great content. All of these links are available on the show notes for this episode. This show is entirely produced by me, Kush Khandelwal, based out of California with the help of my trusted adventure pup Roger. Until next time, keep challenging yourself. Keep pushing those limits. Stay mentally and physically fit. Continue doing what you love to do. And my friends, stay ageless.
Friends, this is not an ad. This is just a quick message to those amongst us who are listening to Ageless Athlete podcast for the first time. I would love it if you would hit subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcast or Spotify or Stitcher or Overcast or what have you. We bring you stories and routines and other inspiration from elites in the world of the best outdoor sports. In each episode, you will find how these athletes stay connected to the outdoors, maintain peak performance, and continue to thrive as they age. I encourage you to look through prior episodes and listen to a couple and see if they resonate. And then, come back next week. We release an episode each week. And I am really inspired to bring you some of the best stories from the world of the outdoors. Okay, back to the show.